Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach and welcome to the weekend preview. Normally I just record the weekend preview, but one of the people recommended in the comments that it'd be good if I walk through sort of how I go through a week of trading and leading up to the weekend and how I sort of go about making those decisions. So thought I'd come out here to the man cave with the frames and pretty much where I set up shop when I do get on the video when I'm in Geelong. And I thought I would work through some of that. So look, some of this video, it may go for a little bit longer. We'll just have to wait and see. But I'll basically go through how I work through some decisions because this week is hectic. There's so many different things we need to think about. Different blokes are on the rise. Different blokes are falling slightly. And we really got to prioritise some of those. So it is tricky. I will say I haven't looked deeply into it yet. I've looked at some numbers, looked at plenty of stats. As you can see, I've got a few tabs and things open. But it's fair to say that I haven't come to a conclusion on what my exact trades will be. I've got a fair idea, but Jesus, should probably install that at some stage. But anyway, back onto the real stuff. I'll go through the teams, talk about a few players, and as you can see, those tabs open there, just to talk about some break-evens, because people probably go about how they decide trades in different ways. You'll get to see how I really work through a bit of a checklist of what I think a player should be offering to warrant a trade. But first things first, a few players to talk about. Dane Beams, 2 weeks with a quad. The reports are at least 2 weeks. Get rid of him. He's got to go. We were even speaking about him last week that we weren't sure if he was going to be a keeper. Had a poor week, bit of injury. He's got to go, unfortunately. That one hasn't worked. You know, he probably looked like a very good bet at the start of the season, but it hasn't worked. He'll be minimum 2. He's very likely to be at least 3 with his history. Toby Greene suspended for 2 weeks and Toby Nankervis suspended for 1. Well, Nankervis is simple. You just keep him. It's 1 week. Hopefully you can find some coverage. Surely we can. Bruce hasn't come back in, which will hurt some. But I think many people will have him in the forward line and should be able to cover him because I think he has shown to be a keeper. So there's no point in trading him just for 1 week suspension. Toby Greene is an interesting one. A lot of people a bit concerned about the 2 weeks. You know, it is a bit frustrating. 2 weeks, understandable, but it just comes down to your decision if you think he's a keeper. He's averaging 99. His points so far would suggest he is. So you just got to ask yourself the question, is he going to be a keeper? And if he is, then you hold on to him. It's not like it's an injury. There's not like there's any concerns when he'll come back or what sort of fitness he'll return in. He'll have 2 weeks off and he'll come back fine. So if you believe he's a keeper, and I presume you do if you've got him, because that's why you would have had him at the start of the season, then you just bite the bullet and hold on to him. The exception to that would be if you're going to cop zeros. If you don't have coverage, then unfortunately you're going to have to get rid of him, that's for sure. But first things first, I always go through the teams. And obviously, for my sake, you're looking for SuperCoach relevant. And generally you're hoping a few cash cows come back in. And you're going through praying that nothing awful transpires. So as we see, no change to the Adelaide lineup. That's good. A few players staying in. No Bruce, which is disappointing. First emergency. Could come in. But I've been surprised that they haven't rushed him back. I really have. Working down, Zach Fisher will hurt a few. That'll be disappointing for many. Not too much relevant. To go he named, but not relevant for SuperCoach. Again, Brett Eddy not named. Not even in the emergencies. Kick 5. I really thought he'd come back sooner. Anyway, as you see, Tommy Stewart out for the Cats, Greene Parfitt out for the Cats, but coming in is Parsons, so a few SuperCoach relevant guys there. David Swallow is back, but you would think many will have traded him, and if you haven't, then you most definitely should. Who else have we got? There's Nankervis, of course. Nothing too much going on there. Sydney's always a big one. A few young guys we're looking at there. Now, of course, McVeigh's back. Florence back. And over, of course, we see Dane Beams and Barrett is back as well, which is good. Now, of course, this is a Sunday game, so crucial that we take a look at the extended bench. Florent, Newman. Concerns, if you got both, you'd be hoping that both can be named, but certainly a lot of people will be hoping that Newman, at the very least, he seems to be the most popular, will be named. And as we can see, Barrett is nicely on the half-forward flank, so that's all well and good. Nothing too much of note, I don't think, with this one. I mean, Watson is rested. I don't think that's really relevant to too many. McGrath is rested, so that hurts. And McNeese also rested. A few people were talking about him. Myers is in, so that's really good to see. He'll be one we all get in, one would think, in a couple of weeks' time. And I haven't checked if Ballack, not that Ballack's going to get dropped anyway, but just for peace of mind, he has been named nicely on the ground wherever he is, forward pocket. So not that that even matters in the modern day. And I haven't looked at the extended benches here, but I'm pretty sure Hannon was named. Yeah, so that's all good. Hardwick on the bench. Some may be looking at him, but yeah, so obviously you look at the teams and everything's Supercoach relevant. I mean, that goes without saying. But I mean, here's my side. Now, off the top, what am I thinking about? This stage of the year, you're looking for cash cows or fallen premiums, because we're trying to upgrade now. Now, of course, many people will have seen I've had that 300k in the bank for a while. Now's the time to use it. Now, people ask me, do I upgrade, do I downgrade this person? Of course, you always have two choices to go down or up. But it just comes down to your structure and how it's going to affect your team. You know, do you have reasonable bench coverage? Can you afford to downgrade to a bloke who's, of course, going to score less, but you can upgrade in the following week? Or do you really need the points now? And often my decisions come down to break even. So when I'm looking at my side, pretty happy with the back line. Stewart maybe out. You just don't know. I think he's certainly still in the mix. Now, obviously Parfitt and Beams, one of them must go as far as I'm concerned. It's time to upgrade. It's time to upgrade. So good to see Barrett back. And of course, in the forward line, Nank. I don't really want Hannon there, but we'll just have to wait and see. I'll walk through a few things. Now, firstly, let's discuss Dane Beams. I personally think you probably go up, because I feel like there's some good fallen premiums to talk about now. I go on to Footy Wire, just along to the SuperCoach part of that, and they give me a nice little breakdown of all their stats. Now, I think Pendlebury is the must-have of this week. I think if you're going to upgrade, he's the one we really want to be getting on board. Break even at 124, you know, he'll probably get that. I mean, the 149 was great, but as you can see, more often than not, he's hitting it. And we all know Pendlebury, he'll be thereabouts. And I think at 577, we're not going to see him too much cheaper. And the fact that Beams has now got to go, the fact that Parfitt has got to go as well, will be meaning a lot of people are looking at options in the midfield. Another one that people should have a look at is Dustin Martin. Now, of course, you see his break even a bit higher, 132, but he is a bit cheaper as well. Of course, he's had a bit of a leaner run. I mean, he started with a bang, and I think I'm sold on Martin being a premium. I think he's going to be a guy we want to get in, and he's very much on my radar. And another bloke, who was it? Oh, of course, it's Dangerfield. Dangerfield's the other one who I haven't put up, but he is falling and will fall at a rapid rate. Of course, he's relevant to me. I didn't go with him. I copped a lot of heat for that, and probably certainly paid a price early on, and probably cost me with a captaincy and a few points. But I think it's fair to say I've gotten a little bit lucky in that regard, and upon reflection, it hasn't and won't hurt me too much. I'll be able to get him at a much cheaper price, and I haven't suffered greatly in regards to points. So, but probably if you don't have him, probably a week or so would be when you're getting him. I think you just want to make sure that he's over those, I think it's hip and rib niggles they're talking about. So I think Dustin Martin and Pendlebury are two guys to look at for an upgrade in the midfield. And at this stage, I'm probably thinking Dane Beams to Pendlebury. I think when you look at those two, break-evens are similar. You pay a little bit more for Pendles, but he's just so much more reliable. And I think he's the man we've got to get on. Plus Dusty, you know, he might even bust out at 135, but he's still going to be around that same price next week. So I think we can afford to pass on him this week if push comes to shove. So as far as my side goes, I'm thinking at this stage, Beams to Pendlebury. Now, another part of it is also, at this stage of the year, where our cash cows are at. And they probably start to peak. Now, it's great that they make money, but we also got to be careful that when they do peak, that we don't let them drop off and start going backwards. So, a few guys to have a look at. Dan Butler. Served us fairly well, has dropped off a little bit. Break even at 47. He's now priced at 280k. He's made us 150. Now, as you can see with those scores, he's pretty much stayed between 60 and 80, largely between 60 and 70 for a lot of the season. I would have to say he's definitely on the chopping block for mine. I think he's a player that I'm looking at getting rid of. I just don't think he's going to be... He's not a great scorer. He's consistent and seems to be locked in the side, which is great. But I think he's more or less peaked. I don't think he's going to get to 300k. Of course, when we say that, if a bloke busts out a 90, last week we were saying, Power Pepper, he probably doesn't have too much further to go. Gets a 97, he then buys himself another week or so in our teams because he can, get a bit of life out of that 97 and a bit of dollars. So you never know, but I think Butler has shown as a forward pocket type, probably 60 to 80s are his score. He'll probably go up 295, so probably 15k. Doesn't really matter too much. Otten, break even at 56. Had a lower and a poorer game last week, but as we know, had a great month there, scoring between 90 and 110. Not sure how much Jenkins being back will affect him. It did a little bit last week. He still looked all right, I thought, and started the game well. But he's probably the sort of guy and the cash cow, even though his break even is 56 and he's probably not going to make too much more money. He's the sort of guy you go, well, look, it's not all about break-evens and numbers. This guy can score points. So I think we definitely got to make Otten probably the last cash cow we dish off, barring he doesn't get his break-even up to around 120 or something like that. He's probably one we can safely bet on, maybe churning out the odd 80 or 90, particularly if the Crows are still flying. So keep the faith with him. Curtly Hampton is another one people will probably be considering, given his break-even. He's starting to get a bit high. I mean, it's 32, but he has shown that he's probably not far off from peaking. Scores of 50 in round 1, 52 in round 4, and last week 41. That 103 has pretty much been his only great week. So 32 break-even. His price about 300. You'd probably suggest he might find his way to 320, 330 if he continues this sort of rate. His average is 65. A bit of a rule of thumb, people like to go, if he's averaging less than his break even, it's time to go. It's not always as simple as that, but it's a reasonable guide, especially after 5 to 6 weeks when a bit of a sample size has come through. So that's pretty much what I'm thinking when you're looking at that. Now, I've got cash in the bank, so I've got 300, so I'm thinking double upgrade. That's why I've got it there. It's time to do it. Now, let's just go in. What do we got? See, what I can do is if I were to go up from Butler and go up from Beams to Pendlebury, what's that, 100k, wasn't it? Yeah, so 100,000. I've got 207,000 left. What'll that give me? Give me up to 487,000. Let's see if my internet can work at a reasonable pace here. While that loads, I think people should probably also consider Cade Simpson. 149 last week. Break even at 51. If you're going to get on him, it would be now. Now, it's tough because the man I'm about to speak about, when I have a look through the trade options here, you're sort of looking at a bloke who the question is his scoring years behind him? And for this fella, his question is, are his scoring years that we know will be ahead of him? Are they now? So that's the question. Are they right now? Let me I'll be able to find him easier through price. You probably know who I'm talking about. It's I Dream of Isaac Heeney. Where are you, mate? Where are you? There you are, mate. There we are. So Isaac Heeney at 433. We're all over him pre-season. Got glandular fever. All of a sudden, unknown when he's going to come back. But he's back. 75 week 1. I think it was 107 in week 2. We'll just get his stats up. I don't know why I didn't have them up beforehand. But nonetheless, at least I can give you a bit of an idea. That should have not taken me that long to find him. Anyway, going back. So, of course, 107 last week, as it says there. Average of 91. I think his break-even's around the 70 mark. So, I'm having an absolute stinker in front of the computer. I already did have him up. Jeez, you guys, you probably saw the tab up there. You're probably yelling at me saying, Jesus, Shorty, open your eyes. I've got a lot of tabs up. Anyway, let's go along here. What's his break even? 73. So The thing with Simpson and Heeney, I think probably if we're looking at upgrade options, the back line, I think Heath Shaw or Simpson is very good options at the moment, both ripe for the picking. Midfield, Pendlebury, Martin, Dangerfield in a couple of weeks. Sloan, people want to get Sloan, but he's just so far up in the price. I just can't justify it. If you can get there and feel that it won't hurt the rest of your team in the future weeks, fair enough. But if you got to overstretch a bit, I wouldn't do it. And in the forward line, I think probably Isaac Heeney is the man, and Nick Rewalt maybe in a couple of weeks. So the question now that I am going with Pendlebury, the question is Heeney or Simpson? Because when I look at the back line, you know, my options are certainly Otten to Simpson, Hampton to Simpson, something like that, because I can probably afford it. I haven't done the exact dollars, but I'm pretty sure I can. And Heeney, the question is Butler to Heeney. And the question with both those guys is, because if you look at Simpson's numbers, aside from the 149 or 148, he didn't set the world on fire. So a little bit concerned that maybe he's dropping back to more of a lower 90s average, aside from, you know, higher 90 or mid 90s. And of course, last year was the real outlier in his career. So just concerns is, you know, he's 33. Is he starting to maybe tail off? Is he going to be a premium absolute keeper? And the question with Heeney is he was very good last week, very good, and he'll get opportunity. Longmire will definitely play him through the midfield. The question is, are we going to see a 95 average from him this year? Because we know we will in the future. Are we going to see it now? So that's the question I will debate. At this stage, I'm thinking probably getting in Heeney. Sometimes also a good rule of thumb and way to work it out is how pressing a bloke is to get. Sort of work out and look at your side and go, what will the top six be, in my opinion? You've got Laird, you've got Adams, you've got Toohey. Toohey may not be top six, but I'm rolling with him at the moment. You probably go Shaw, Doherty. Then you've got one spot left. You think it's Simpson, Rance, will someone else pop up? I think probably, unless he's one of the first guys that comes to mind, unless you're not really missing a key boat, I think it's fair that you can go without. Where Pendlebury is a guy that you say, well, I am definitely going to need him at some stage in the season. And he's probably not going to get much cheaper. So I think we really got to latch onto him there. So look, that's probably what I'm going to do. Will probably be Butler up to Heeney and then Beams to Pendlebury. Now, of course, Parfitt will probably be a downgrade at some stage. I've talked a bit about premiums and going up to them. Downgrade options, just trying to think. Aaron Black in the forward line is obviously one. Parsons, another player, came back in the lineup after suspension. I think are both reasonably good options. Black, I feel, might be on the fringe at times. Of course, he scored 100 in the first week, couldn't back it up, but it was a tough day for the Cats. I'm just unsure whether he's an absolute lock, especially when Menzel comes back on the side. Gregson's coming back, and if McCarthy comes back soon. You know, I'm a Cats fan, and I feel my judgment's fairly good on them. Black is not a lock. He may well work his way to being a lock, but at this stage, I'm much more comfortable with upgrading guys, because there's no fellas going down in the downgrade option that are really saying must have. And the fact that Barrett came back gave me a bit of heart as well. And as long as Newman's picked, Williamson is going well, I feel comfortable with my stocks there. Ballack, Powell-Pepper should make me money. So I'm feeling comfortable with my cash generation, and that's how you get to the thought process of must trade up, get some scorers, get the upgrades going. So I'm not sure there's a stack else to talk about. I just wanted to do a bit of a different weekend preview. Someone said, look, Shorty, I really like if you showed us how you go about your tradings, where you look at the stats, just working through it. Sometimes I'll have a bit of a think about what I'm going to say before a video. This one really wasn't. I just thought I'd come on, open a few tabs and really just go live. Just talk about it as I would if I was picking my side. So, you know, just weigh up all the options. I'm trying to think if there's too many other guys that people were asking questions about. I don't think there were. Gary Ablett was one. Of course, he went bang with 210 last week. I would honestly say if you're weighing up Ablett, Martin, Pendlebury, I'd probably put Ablett at the bottom of those. Now, that's a pretty harsh call for a bloke who just scored the double ton. And the fact is, if you're going to pull the trigger on Ablett, it's now. You can't afford to wait a week or two because his price will just go up by a long way and quickly. So we've really got to think about it. And the reason I say it is that was a fantastic game from Ablett. And it shows that he still can be the champion we all know. But I feel like we'll see more glimpses of that champion rather than week-to-week consistency. So I still think he'll be a great averager. I think he'll be 115. But I also feel like safer bets for probably same, if not better, average are Martin and Pendlebury. I probably feel they're both safer bets to produce that. Because as we know, Ablett, we don't really doubt his scoring. He hasn't been as bad as the media has made out, except for probably one game when they got smashed. But I think Ablett has shown that he's still capable of huge numbers, but I don't think we'll see them as regularly. And again, the final call is just those shoulders. I really am concerned about those, and I do feel he'll miss weeks. So I don't think he'll probably play 22 games. Guessing injuries is tough, but probably I would be edging towards Pendlebury or Martin or waiting on Dangerfield if you don't already have him. So I reckon that about sums it up. Downgrade options, there were probably others. I think Ed Vickers-Willis was another one in the back line. And Lewis Melican was the other one. So, of course, the Swans defender. I would probably say both of those guys are reasonable options. They haven't been scoring great. I think they're both averaging mid to high 50s from memory. But I think they're both probably good options, both playing in struggling teams, both promising youngsters, and I think both will get a reasonable amount of opportunity this season. And they have looked reasonably good too. So I think definitely we should be sticking with them. I presume Melican wasn't dropped. I mean, I don't think we saw that earlier, did we? Because I must say I wasn't checking for him. Nah, so he's named at centre-half back, and I do feel like he's probably looking pretty comfortable in that Swans lineup. And North and Sydney will be looking to give plenty of opportunity to those younger guys. So I think there was only 4 or 5 cash cow options, downgrade options. So I think I've covered those. And I reckon none of them are must-haves, but all of them you could mount a case for being reasonable selections. If I was going to say which one is the best pick, I'd probably say Ed Vickers-Willis. I think he showed a good pre-season. Don't know why he wasn't named round 1, but he wasn't. He's shown a couple of 50s, but I think he's a very composed player, can play a few roles. North should give him plenty of opportunities. I think Melican, I must say I haven't seen too much of him, but we do know the Swans will surely now take the view of playing younger players. Parsons and Black, obviously being in a more successful Geelong team and being 2 more inexperienced players always means that it's a little bit more unknown on their job security. I think Black has shown to be a scorer, probably got the best scoring ability out of all 4, but I do think his job security is also the most shaky. So it's tough to get a read. The fact that Parsons came back in straight away from suspension suggests they've got a fair bit of confidence. But Geelong do have a reasonable amount of depth coming through. A few guys dropped. Menegola got dropped. Scott Selwood will be coming back. Collar Jasny to come back potentially. So there's a bit there. So just, think about that when you make a decision. So as I said, if you're looking for upgrade, just in summary, want to upgrade in the back line, I suggest probably Doherty before he really skyrockets off that 150. Shaw's nicely priced. Simpson nicely priced if you think he's still got it. In the midfield, I definitely feel like Beams must go. Parfitt, whether he goes this week, next week, doesn't matter. Depends on how it all fits your structures. As far as upgrades, of course, the ones I mentioned, Pendles, Martin, Dangerfield in a couple of weeks. Ablett, if you're really loving him, I don't fully endorse it. But, there might be other guys. Hanbury, Treloar, nicely priced. Treloar probably isn't setting the world on fire, but I know a few people might be getting on board Hanbury. I know a couple have. Not the worst move. And, of course, forward line, I think it's pretty much, if you haven't got McRae or Dalhouse, you need to get him. Rewalt will be ripe for the picking in a week or so, once he loses that 160, which I think he has now. I think he's coming off 79 and 113, so certainly he will drop in price. Should be able to pick him up around 500, I'd say. And otherwise, Isaac Heeney. I think I'm a big fan of him. I was pre-season. You can check out my player profile of him. I talked about him there. I really do think he'll jump into the elite bracket, so I think he's one we should be getting our hands on. So hopefully this has been interesting, guys. I'm not sure on the time count. It probably says somewhere, but as you guys know, I'm shocking at this. Wee, geez, that ain't going to tell me. But anyway, I'm sure I've been going for a little while. This should tell me. 25 minutes. I didn't think it'd be going that long, but anyway, if you've stuck around for 25 minutes to see me say this, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll try and wrap this up quickly. So hopefully that has been interesting for you guys. Something a bit different, a longer video, I know. I try to keep this about 10 minutes, but 10 to 12 minutes, but doesn't always be the case. So thanks for tuning in, guys. If you've got any questions, try and work it off what I've been talking about this video, because it's unlikely that I will get round to questions heading off to lawn tomorrow, so it should be good fun. So thanks for tuning in. Subscribe to the video if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel even. Give the video a like, comment away. Thanks for tuning in, guys. All the best in SuperCoach this weekend.